Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified, an answer to what, why, and how of newspaper reading. Today we will discuss the Delhi edition of the Hindu newspaper dated 14th October 2019. And the articles that we will discuss today are displayed on your screen. So let us start our discussion. Now this article on page number 10 talks about the problem of base erosion and profit sharing. And we know that there are various multinational companies which operate globally. However, they try to evade taxes in various tax jurisdictions. So in this article, the author has highlighted that the government's tax revenue are not up to the mark and they are not increasing at a rate which was expected in the recent budget. And this is mainly because of poor collections in GST, etc. So to improve the tax collection, the government has recently proposed to reduce the corporate tax to about 25%. However, the author highlights that the issue of multinational companies which are operating globally and evading taxation is one of the important factors in low tax revenues for the government of India. So that is why the author talks about a new type of unitary international tax which should be imposed on these MNCs. And this unitary taxation which should be imposed internationally was proposed by the International Corporate Taxation or the ICRICT. So finally, the author has highlighted the key concerns related to the imposition of such a unitary global taxation on the multinational companies which are operating globally. For example, companies like Google and Microsoft, they operate globally. However, they are not paying taxes in various tax jurisdictions. So before that, we will try and understand what is meant by these terms, the base erosion and profit sharing, also the concepts like transfer pricing, etc. And after that, we will try to understand the recent proposal by the ICRICT and also the concern which has been raised by the author in this regard. So this will fall under General Studies paper 3 under the topic economic development. So now what is meant by this term base erosion and profit shifting? So it simply refers to the tax avoidance strategy in which the companies take undue advantage of the tax exemptions in order to reduce their tax burdens. So this term base erosion and profit shifting means that companies, in order to reduce their tax burdens, simply shift from high tax countries to low tax countries. And in this process, what they do is that they erode the taxation base of the high tax jurisdiction countries and they try to shift their profits to those countries which have low taxation systems. So in this case, the MNCs try to avoid the taxation in the high tax countries, and also by shifting to low tax jurisdictions, they avoid their taxation burdens. So under this tax avoidance strategy, the MNCs shift their profits from high tax jurisdictions to low tax jurisdictions. And these low tax jurisdictions are known as tax havens. And they do so in order to pay less tax. So this leads to erosion of tax base for high tax countries. And a report published by the OECD or the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development stated that the base erosion and profit shifting is responsible for the tax losses of around $200 billion globally. So let us try to understand what are the important tools of base erosion and profit shifting. So the important tools of BEPS include double taxation avoidance agreements or the misuse of these agreements. Secondly, treaty shopping. Thirdly, round tripping. And finally, transfer mispricing. So by all these methods, the MNCs try to avoid paying tax. And due to this, it is causing great amount of losses to countries which have high tax jurisdictions. So now let us understand the term double taxation avoidance agreement and how it is misused by MNCs to avoid paying taxes. So regarding this double taxation agreement, you should note that it is signed between two or more countries. And its objective is that taxpayers in these countries can avoid being taxed twice for the same income. Now, for example, there are two countries A and B. And if an MNC by the name X, which is registered in country A, does a business in country B and earns the profit from its operation in the country B, it will be taxed twice in both these countries. This is because it is registered in country A. However, it is earning profits in country B. So this MNC during normal circumstances will be taxed twice. And in such a situation, it will have to pay taxes in the country B as well as country A. So the key objective of the DTA agreement is that the taxpayers in these countries can avoid being taxed twice for the same income. So as we have seen in this example, the company X during normal circumstances will be taxed twice in both the countries. However, if there is a double taxation agreement between the country A and B, this company X will not have to pay the taxation twice and will only have to pay the tax once. So either this company X will pay the tax in B country or in the A country. So these double taxation avoidance agreements are intended to make a country an attractive investment destination by providing relief on dual taxation. So you should understand that such kind of agreements are signed in order to attract the foreign direct investment in such countries. This is because if an MNC or a company will be taxed twice, it will not find it attractive to invest in the other country. So in majority of the cases, the country has to pay taxes in the country in which it is registered. Now, how this double taxation avoidance agreement is misused? So let us take up the example of India. And in India's case, India has signed this double taxation avoidance treaty with Mauritius, Cayman Island, etc. So in case of India, if a company which is registered in Mauritius or Cayman Island will not have to pay taxes in India, but will have to pay taxes in the country in which they are registered. So for example, if a company Y is registered in Mauritius, it will not have to pay taxes in India under the double taxation avoidance agreement. So what the multinational companies do is that they create or register shell companies in these low taxation countries. And here you should note that these countries are generally low tax countries. So what multinational companies do is that they register a shell company in these low taxation countries, and from there on they invest in countries like India. So in such a scenario, the MNCs avoid paying taxes in both Mauritius as well as in India. This is because Mauritius already has a low taxation system, and also India is not charging taxes under the DTAA treaty or the agreement. So this phenomenon leads to base erosion in India or the tax base erosion in India. And this is done by shifting the profit to Mauritius or Cayman Island because it is registered in that low tax jurisdiction. Now another related term is the treaty shopping. And under this treaty shopping, a foreign company routes its investment into India through a tax haven country or a low tax jurisdiction country. And it does so by registering a company headquartered in the tax haven and then establishes its Indian subsidiary to carry out operations. For example, the Vodafone's operation in India were routed through the Cayman Island. Although the company is not based in Cayman Island, it registered a shell company in Cayman Island, and from there on it invested in India. And by doing so, it avoided paying taxes in India, and also it benefited because it was located in a low tax country or a tax haven like Cayman Island. So by misusing these agreements and treaty shopping, these companies try to avoid paying taxes. And these leads to huge losses for countries where the companies are earning profits. Now the details of these double taxation avoidance agreements and treaty shopping are provided in your PDF. So please go through them. Another method of base erosion and profit shifting is a term known as round tripping. Now to understand the concept of round tripping, let us take the example of India and the tax haven countries like Mauritius and Cayman Island. Now regarding this, you should note that if India has high taxes, and these tax haven countries like Mauritius and Cayman Island have low taxes. Now in this scenario, a company which is registered in India and belongs to India opens up a shell company in the tax haven. And through this shell company, it again invests into India. Now as this mother company registers a shell company in the low tax country or the tax haven countries, it tries to avoid paying taxes in India. This is because the shell company is registered in the tax havens. And this process has been termed as round tripping. This is because in this process, the capital moves from high taxation country to low taxation countries and from low taxation country again to the high taxation country. And this process is followed by MNCs or companies simply in order to avoid or bypass the high taxation system of the mother country where it is operating. So as you can see in this definition, it refers to a practice where the capital belonging to India goes out to a tax haven country where it is used to set up a shell company, and the money is then reinvested back in India in the form of FDI. And the profit out of such investment cannot be taxed in India as the capital is coming from a tax haven. So simply this leads to loss of taxes in India. And that is why this is also a technique of base erosion and profit shifting. Now the third method which is used for base erosion and profit shifting is known as transfer mispricing. Now what is meant by the term transfer price? So here you should note that it refers to the price at which the parent or the subsidiary company sells its goods and services to another subsidiary company. For example, if there is a parent company which is located in India, and if this parent company sells its product to a subsidiary company, this pricing is known as transfer pricing. Now, as we know that India has high taxation and the tax havens will have a low taxation. Now, what these companies do in mispricing is that the parent company which is located in India sells to its subsidiary which is located in a tax haven at a very high price. And by doing this, the cost of the company or the operating cost of the company which is located in India becomes high. Now, as the operating cost becomes high, it can show that its profit has decreased considerably. So by pricing the product for a subsidiary company at a high price, what the parent company does is that it increases or shows its operating costs as high. And by doing so, it shows that its profit has decreased. Now, as the profit has decreased, the tax burden on the parent company also decreases. And that is how the companies avoid paying higher taxes in countries with high tax jurisdiction. So now, as you can see in the 2016's question, the term base erosion and profit shifting is sometimes seen in the news in the context of, so the correct answer was that curbing of tax evasion by multinational companies. And we have seen that these multinational companies deploy various methods to avoid tax. Now, what is the reform in the taxation which has been proposed by the Independent Commission for Reform of International Corporate Taxation, or the ICRICT? So it has now proposed a new formula to tax such MNCs which are evading the taxation in various countries and which are operating globally. And in this line, this ICRICT has proposed a unitary tax on MNCs which are operating globally. So now a common tax will be imposed on these companies globally, and this unitary tax will be imposed on the total global profits of the MNC. And once this common tax is imposed, it will be distributed amongst various countries based on a formula. Now this distribution formula might include sales of these companies in various countries. Secondly, it will also include the employment in these companies in various countries. And thirdly, it will include the users in case of digital companies. However, various concerns have been mainly raised about this formula which should be used for such global tax on the MNCs which are operating globally. And the OECD has suggested that only the sales revenue should be used as a criteria for the distribution of tax. However, this has raised concerns amongst the developing countries. This is because such developing countries are expected to lose out from this because they are often the producers of commodities which are consumed in the advanced economies. For example, China is one of the biggest manufacturers and it exports mainly to the developed countries. So if sales revenues are in those developed countries, majority of the tax will be distributed to those developed countries. So this shows that the developing countries stand at disadvantage. So in this line, the author has suggested that instead of using the formula which is suggested by OECD, the G24 group has suggested something. And it has suggested that a formula should be used which should be a combination of sales revenues. It should also include the employment that is provided by these companies, etc. So by using such a formula, it will be more inclusive and the developing countries will not stand at loss. And once the developing countries are assured that they will not stand at loss, such a global tax can become a reality. So here we should note that the finalization of such a global tax has not taken place and this is a news in transition. However, there were important concepts like base erosion and profit sharing, double taxation avoidance agreements, transfer mispricing, etc., which are important for us from mains as well as preliminary examination point of view. With this, let's take up the next article. Now, this article on page number 9 talks about the problem of plastic pollution in the Great Nicobar Island. And a research has recently found that the plastic pollutants are making their way into the Great Nicobar Island from the neighboring countries in the Indian Ocean like Malaysia, Indonesia, and Thailand, etc. And this plastic pollution is posing a threat to the biodiversity of this Nicobar Island. Now, what is important for us from the preliminary examination point of view is the location of this Great Nicobar Island, which all national parks are part of this Biosphere Reserve, that is the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve, and other important national parks of the Andaman and Nicobar. So, in this article, we will try and understand about the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve, and also will have an idea about how to approach the biosphere reserves and national parks. So this will form a part of preliminary examination syllabus under the topic General Issues on Biodiversity. Now if you look at the biosphere reserves in India, there are in total 18 biosphere reserves in India. And out of these 18 biosphere reserves, 10 of them have been listed under the Man and Biosphere program of the UNESCO. So knowing important facts about these biosphere reserves, for example, the location of these biosphere reserves, the important flora of these biosphere reserves, as well as fauna, and the tribals that are present in these reserves are important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. And you might be knowing that in the present year, that is 2019, in the preliminary examination, there was a question related to the Agastyamalaya Biosphere Reserve. So in this background, let us try and understand some important facts related to the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. So first and foremost, it is included under the Man and Biosphere Reserve list of the UNESCO. And this is also known as the World Network of Biosphere Reserves. And it is located on the southernmost island of the Andaman and Nicobar group of islands. And it has two important national parks in it, which are the Campbell Bay National Park and the Galathia National Park. So the names of these national parks and their location is extremely important for us from the preliminary examination point of view. Another important fact is that it is part of the Sunda Land Biodiversity Hotspot, and it has tropical wet evergreen forests. Now as far as fauna is concerned, the important fauna that is found here include the saltwater crocodile, Nicobar lion-tailed macaque, giant leatherback sea turtle, etc. And the important tribals that are present in this biosphere reserve are the Shompenes and the Nicobarese. So all these facts can be important for us from preliminary examination point of view. Now if you go through the prelims compass of environment and ecology, you will find an exhaustive list of all the biosphere reserves that are present in India and important information related to this. And in that prelims compass, you will also find the list of national parks, the tiger reserves, wetlands in India, etc. And all these important facts and figures are important for preliminary examination point of view. And many a times the questions have been asked in preliminary examination based on such information. So you should go through this information from the prelims compass. So in the prelims compass, which was released before your 2019 preliminary examination, had a list of national parks. And the important national parks of Andaman and Nicobar Islands have also been listed. And they are total 9 in number. And as we can see here, the Campbell Bay National Park and Galathia Bay National Park are part of the Nicobar Islands. However, other important national parks like the Mahatma Gandhi Marine National Park lies in Andaman. Further, the Middle Button Island National Park, Mount Harriet National Park, North Button Island National Park, Rani Jhansi Marine Park, Saddle Peak and South Button Island Park are all part of the Andaman Islands. So these are important names and can be asked in your preliminary examination anytime. So you should learn all these national parks and their location. And if you go through this question, which was asked in the year 2019, it reads, which of the following are in the Agastyamalaya Biosphere Reserves? So all the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries located in the important biosphere reserves are extremely important for us from preliminary examination point of view. And as far as this question, which was asked in the prelims of 2019 is concerned, the answer was A, that is the Nayyar, Pepara and Shandurne wildlife sanctuaries as well as Kalakkad Mundan-Thurai Tiger Reserve are located in the Agastyamalaya Biosphere Reserve. And all these were provided in your C3 magazines of environment and ecology. With this, let's take up the next article. Now, this article on page number 13 talks about the first ever comprehensive national nutritional survey which was conducted by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. and it has highlighted that the education of mothers is directly linked to better nutrition in children of India. So, in this article, we'll try to look at the key takeaways of this survey or the first comprehensive national nutrition survey and what is the linkage between the education of mothers and the nutritional level of children. Now, first and foremost, why was such a comprehensive national nutritional survey required? So, the main focus of releasing such a comprehensive national nutrition survey was to identify most critical nutritional challenges which the country is facing right now. And once these challenges are identified, India could reorient its national policies and programs accordingly. Now, new kinds of challenges are emerging as far as the nutritional condition of the children in India is concerned. In this regard, some of the children are facing the problem of undernutrition or malnutrition, while other section of children are facing the problem of overnutrition, overweight, and obesity. So these are some critical nutritional challenges which are being faced in the country right now. And presently, India is going through what has been termed as the nutrition transition. And it is facing the double burden of both the undernutrition and the obesity at the same time. So in this background, the scientific collection of data on the nutritional status was required. And that is why this comprehensive National Nutritional Survey 2019 has been released. Now, traditionally, the focus of the government's policies as far as the food security was concerned was to mainly increase the calorie intake. For example, the National Food Security Act focuses on providing the necessary calories for people in India. However, after this survey, the focus will be more on improving the nutritional status of children and people. So, in this background, the most important nutritional challenges which have been highlighted by this comprehensive national nutritional survey include the malnutrition, what are the socio-economic determinants of the nutrition, anemia due to iron deficiency, what is the impact of micronutrient deficiencies, and nutrition transition leading to increasing prevalence of non-communicable diseases which are caused due to overweighing or the obesity. Further, one of the important linkage which has been highlighted by this nutrition survey is that the maternal education has an impact on the nutritional level of the children. And this is mainly because if the mothers are educated, this will lead to improved childcare. And how will the education of mothers improve the childcare? This is mainly because these mothers will have access to the various interventions by the government regarding the nutrition and health of the children. And due to the increased awareness, which is a result of the maternal education, there will be low risk of undernutrition and overweight or the obesity. So this highlights the linkage between the maternal education and the level of nutrition of children in India. So these are few points which are highlighted by this survey, which was released by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. Now, as far as various definitions of the malnutrition are concerned, you can go through today's PDF where we have provided the definition of malnutrition, what is meant by the term stunting and wasting, what is obesity, etc. And the points which have been highlighted by this survey can be used in answering questions related to health and particularly related to the nutritional status in India. With this, let's take up the next article. Now, this article on page number 1 talks about the recent report released by the World Bank, which is known as the South Asian Economic Focus. And it has projected that India's GDP growth rate is likely to decline and reach up to 6%. Now, in the last year, that is 2018 to 19, the GDP growth rate stood at about 6.8%. However, it has predicted that the growth rate is likely to recover to about 6.9% by the year 2021. So this will form part of the General Studies Paper 3 under the topic Economic Development. In this background, let us look at the key takeaways of this World Bank report and why is India's GDP growth rate declining. So what are the reasons for this decline in GDP? So as we have learned, the growth rate of India in the year 2018 and 19 was about 6.8 to 6.9%. However, the World Bank is projecting that India's growth rate in the upcoming year, that is 2019 and 20, is likely to stand at about 6%. So the growth rate of the GDP will be about 6%. So this shows that the GDP growth rate is declining as compared to the past year. Now, some of the reasons which have been highlighted by the World Bank in this regard is the sharp decline in the private consumption, which is the important factor on the demand side in Indian economy. Now, we have learned about all these factors in various DNS videos and the articles that have appeared in the Hindu newspaper related to the economic slowdown. Further, the World Bank has discussed that the weakening of growth is mainly being witnessed both in industry and the services sector. And as we know that this is mainly being affected by the problem of non-performing assets and bad loans. Further, the inflation in India has remained low, and the headline inflation has been way below the monetary policy target of 4%. And besides these, the uncertain global economic scenario is also impacting the India's growth story. And various global events like the trade wars between US and China, rising tendencies of protectionism as witnessed by various decisions of the United States of America, and the process of deglobalization is impacting India's economy. So this shows that Indian economy is now getting linked with the global economy. So any impact on the global economy is having its impact on the Indian economy. Now, as a result of decline in the economic growth, India is also witnessing the problem of increasing current account deficit. And this current account deficit has widened to about 2.1% of the GDP in the year 2018 and 19 from 1.8% last year. And further, the general government deficit, that is the combined fiscal deficit of the central government as well as the state government, is widened by about 0.2 percent points. And it currently stands at about 5.9% of the GDP in the year 2018 and 19. So all these facts highlight that the Indian economy is witnessing a kind of slowdown. However, the overall economic outlook of the World Bank towards Indian economy is positive, and it has shown confidence in the measures that are being taken by the government of India. For example, the RBI has reduced the repo rate. Also, various other measures have been taken by the government of India to improve the economic growth rate. And based on these efforts by the government of India, the World Bank has projected that Indian economy is likely to grow at about 6.9% by the year 2021. So these are few highlights and important points, and these can be used in your answers in the mains examination. With this, let's take up the next article. Now, this article on page number 13 talks about the Nepal-China road connectivity deal which has been signed between Nepal and China during the visit of Chinese president. And both the countries have concluded agreements for all-weather connectivity between Kathmandu and Tibet Autonomous Region of China. Further, both are intensifying cooperation to realize the dream of Trans-Himalayan multidimensional connectivity network. So in this regard, let us look at some of the concerns of India regarding the increasing links between Nepal and China. So this will fall under General Studies paper 2 under the topic International Relations. Now, Nepal has traditionally been very close to India. And now the China is trying to connect Nepal with itself through a new trans-boundary railway link, and also the recent agreements have been signed regarding the road connectivity between China and Nepal. By this, China is trying to link Nepal with its Belt Road Initiative. And this would be a part of China's linking this project to the subcontinent. Now, Nepal shares its borders with China as well as India, and both the countries have traditionally competed for their influence in Nepal. However, Nepal has always traditionally been close to India. Now, in the present times, we know that China has been heavily investing in various developing countries under its Belt Road Initiative. For example, China has invested in the CPEC or the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. So such investments are also part of the Chinese economic diplomacy. Further, India and China have their own sources of tensions. For example, India and China have concerns regarding the CPEC passing through the Pakistan occupied Kashmir. Further, both have border disputes, and both these countries, China and India, have had their military standoffs at Doklam, which is presently being claimed by Bhutan. So India is concerned that the increasing Chinese influence in Nepal can further lead to such increased military standoffs between India and China. Further, now, why is Nepal moving away from India towards China? Now, in 2015, Nepal had released a new democratic constitution. However, it is said that India unofficially imposed a month long blockade along the border of Nepal and India. And this led to the shortage of essential commodities in Nepal. Now, India imposed this blockade as a retaliation for not having a bigger role in the drafting of the Nepal's constitution. However, such a move of India led to a humanitarian crisis. So, keeping this in mind, Nepal is trying to diversify its relations. This is because Nepal is a landlocked country and does not have access to any ports. So, traditionally, it relied on India. However, now it is trying to move towards China also. So, the concerns of India are that India's influence in its neighborhood is decreasing. Secondly, Chinese influence in Nepal can lead to further standoffs between the militaries, like the Doklam standoff. And further, India is already against the Belt Road Initiative of China and is also concerned about the string of pearls policy which is being pursued by China in the Indian Ocean region. So these are few points regarding India's concerns towards the Nepal-China road link. Now, after today's discussion, you should try and answer these questions from your preliminary examination point of view. Answer will be displayed after 5 seconds. Now, the first question reads, which of the following are part of the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve? So, as we have learned today, the Campbell Bay and the Galathea Bay National Park are part of the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserves. So, the correct answer is B, that is 1 and 2 only. However, the Saddle Peak is located in the Andaman Islands and is not a part of the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserves. Second question is, which of the following tribes are present in the Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserves? So, as we have learned, the Shonpins and the Nicobaris are part of Great Nicobar Biosphere Reserve. So, correct answer is B. Third question is, which of the following national parks is or are included in the UNESCO's Man and Biosphere programs? So, here you should note that Manas National Park is not included in the Man and Biosphere program. So, correct answer here is C, that is 2 and 3 only. Fourth question is, the Bunny grasslands are found in which of the following biosphere reserves? So these are found in the Run of Kutch in the Kutch Biosphere Reserve. With this, we conclude today's discussion. Now let's take up the question for the day.